Hello, and thank you for listening to the Hilariously Unemployed podcast. I'm your host, Dana Duckworth, also known as the Big Speaker. My goal with this podcast is ultimately to get someone hired. I know all too well the impacts of unemployment and layoffs. My guest and I hope to provide insight and resources that will support someone in gaining their next opportunity. You can support the Hilariously Unemployed podcast and those who are impacted by unemployment by giving this podcast a 5-star review, sharing it with someone who's hiring, or someone who's hilariously unemployed. I hope that you enjoy the show and find some laughter throughout. It's time to get into that big speaker bag. Hello and welcome back to the Hilariously Unemployed podcast part 2. I am here with a guest that I am so humbled and grateful to welcome. I had the pleasure of meeting Miss Kimberly Bell when I was in service to others, working at the Urban League as a volunteer. We were connected to each other at a returning citizens fair. If you're not sure what returning citizens is, that is people who have been incarcerated, are now out, and they are looking to do the same things that we do every day. That means to have a paycheck coming in, to have a household, to have everything that they had before they were incarcerated. And we were there to welcome them back in with, of course, different services. Myself and Kimberly, we took care of the resume reviews, and that was awesome. There were so many vendors, so many partnerships, so many different organizations that showed up to say, welcome home and welcome back to society. You are valued, you are needed. Your mistakes are not forever. Let's help you and get you to where you need to be. So, that right there is a great connection that Kimberly and I have. Kimberly, go ahead and say what's up and tell the people who you are. Welcome, my girl.
Thank you, Dana. Hello, everyone. I'm Kimberly Bell. I'm a mindfulness educator and current government employee. I chose mindfulness as a thing that I focused on as an entrepreneur because of the stress that the career search and just having a work-life balance. So I chose mindfulness as my specialty, and I'm just here to spread awareness about the benefits of mindfulness in whatever way. So I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be connected with you, Dana, through the National Urban League and Young Professionals.
Absolutely. And who better than a mindfulness educator to talk to people about the struggles, including your girl, if you caught the top of the episode, who has struggled through this thing called life. Kimberly, as we always do here on the Hilariously Unemployed, they're looking to see how long, in your case, were you hilariously unemployed? Because you do a lot of things.
Yes, I do a lot of things. I've made a bunch of career pivots over the last few years, and I accept that that is who I am. I was hilariously unemployed for 9 months.
Wow. That's a long time to be
Yeah.
hilariously unemployed. Let's go ahead and get right into it. First, I want you to kind of walk me through what your background is. So I know that you're an HR professional, but specifically in that recruiting vein. Explain to the audience what your background is and how you started your professional journey.
Sure. So my current background again is in HR, but I have a specific focus in compliance and the onboarding piece. So that looks like after the job offer. So after the job offer comes, I'm working behind the scenes, getting people onboarded to companies. I came into that role just by searching on, I believe, Indeed or something.
Mm-hmm.
They were looking for a recruiting coordinator. So by trade, by specialty, I'm an administrative specialist.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the person who handles all the paperwork, no matter what industry it is. And I actually came from the insurance industry. I was an insurance agent for 4 years.
Wow.
And I made the switch over to HR because I like helping people connect with jobs.
How did you survive being an insurance agent?
I didn't. I did not.
Nobody likes y'all.
No, I didn't survive. And actually, I had a life changing event. My father passed away while I was pivoting from insurance, and it was just I was burned out. Insurance is not an easy feel. And speaking to the mindfulness piece, I wish that there was some type of emotional intelligence and mindfulness piece in the insurance industry. Of course, companies are doing it now,
Yeah.
but back then it wasn't anything. And I was experiencing things like customers having tragic accidents, and people taking their own lives, and people's homes burning down. And nobody thinks about the insurance agent, because of course the customer is the most important.
Yeah.
But as the agent, you are affected by those things too. And I was not prepared for any of that.
Absolutely. You are, especially a mindfulness educator, you're an empath. So you're receiving people's energy and their heartbreak, and you're watching them try to put their lives back together in the process of doing a job. And so often, like, we're just trying to do our job, but the things around the job do impact us. So I could see how that would be a challenge for anyone, let alone somebody with such an open heart like you.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so your story is a little bit different when it comes to your layoff because you were working for a third party vendor, but your big client was Morgan Stanley. So explain to me how that even came about that you were working with a firm that got you to work with Morgan Stanley and what that experience was because this was your first layoff ever, right?
Yes, that was my first layoff ever. So yes, just working through a third party. First, I just want to preface to say Morgan Stanley was a great client to work for. But what happened with the layoff is just back in 2023, the recruiting industry as a whole was just going through a massive undertaking as far as like laying people off in the recruiting space. So whether you're a recruiter, a recruiting coordinator, talent acquisition, just the whole industry as a whole back in 2023 just experienced this, massive layoff.
Hmm.
So to be able to support a client on that level was definitely something that I hold in great regard, because I never would have thought I would have been supporting a client like that. And the role was great, being a recruiting coordinator. So I actually just applied through like a Indeed. So of course, when you go through a third party, they never tell you who the client is
Hmm.
until you actually get the offer.
Right.
So I applied to the third party vendor, and then they were like, "Okay, well, we can tell you who the client is now." And I was just like, "Wow!" So at first, I was like, "Am I really able to work for this company?" And it just from there, I worked for them for 9 months, and I had a great time doing work for them. But of course, the space of talent acquisition just really took a hit back last year.
Yeah, it really did. I had a guest here who said that people basically overhired and then they went and they had to shrink everything, including the recruiting departments in these large organizations. So not only did they not need any more employees, they didn't need anybody that was seeking to help them find any employees. What would you
Yes.
say your impact at Morgan Stanley was? Do you know how many people you were actually able to help get placed or help to start the process of their onboarding?
No, because again, as a third party, there was just a small subset of people that we were supporting. But
Mhm.
I do know that, from a standpoint, from what I believe, there were a lot, at least hundreds of people.
Mm,
But
that is
it was,
major.
yeah, it was major, yes.
So why they lay you off?
Again, redundancy. Just again, like you said, they people all companies overhired in 2022.
Hmm.
And again, because I wasn't a direct hire, it's kind of
Yeah,
like, they're gonna get rid of any
yeah. Easy to let go of
staff. Yeah.
your contractors, your third
Yes.
parties, your vendors, your international employees, like people who
Yes,
work for
of
you
course.
overseas. Those are typically some of the roles that will go first. Now, tell me about the day of this, where you were
uh
and how things went down.
this is the hilarious part.
Mhm.
So I was feeling myself that day.
Mm-hmm.
I had found this little coffee shop here locally in Virginia Beach, and I was just I got a call,
Mm-hmm.
and I had went to go pick up my breakfast. I was going to go back home and start work, but I got a call from my manager. I was like, she never calls me. Like, if she ever needs me, she'll just send me an email. And but for her to call me without any type of like pre-warning,
Mm-hmm.
it was odd. So I kind of knew something was up. So here I am picking up my $12 avocado toast
Ooh.
and my $8 coffee. I was just like,
Ooh, can y'all take this back immediately? I'm gonna need these funds.
I'm like, girl, I'm just living a high life, right? Just I got my avocado toast and my iced coffee, and I was just ready to go back to start working. She was just like, hey, you know, our company, we have to let some people go. They didn't specify, any particular reason. It's just, they just let you go. Especially if you have no performance issues. There were no performance issues or anything like that. It was literally just redundancy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just like, I couldn't believe it. But actually, I was a little relieved um, because I had been doing a lot. I was in school at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and it really just, I was like, you know what? I can walk away from this and not feel fear.
Right.
I felt almost relieved because I could have a moment to myself.
Mm-hmm.
But that day, after it happened, I was like, I just drove to the park. I drove the first Landing State Park, and I sat in front of the water, and I was just had this overwhelming sense of peace.
That is nice. I think for a lot of people, myself included, is like immediate panic and then like anger and
Mm-hmm.
then like, oh, okay, I can take naps. Okay, I'm getting into the groove of this. And then oh shit, I need to figure out how to generate income. So that was kind of
Yes.
my process and my realization. I'm glad that you were able to find peace because you had things going on with school and you probably were able to focus a lot more on that thing that obviously was making you happier than working. Because I mean, who doesn't want to just be living their dreams and doing the things they want to fulfill their destiny? But that's a refreshing take on what happened.
Right. But I do want to say that having the mindfulness piece is what allowed me to look at it from that point.
Hmm.
Because had I not had the mindfulness practice, I would have did it in the same order as you. Like, oh crap, what's going on? Now I'm panicking. What am I gonna do? But because of mindfulness, I was able to reverse that
Mm.
and
Where
say,
were you when I needed you?
yes, where was mindfulness? Because and this is why I'm telling you, if you start now, you will realize in a year or two that you will be better off with a mindfulness practice than not having one.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. I'm starting today. You can lead me and the congregation in a mindfulness exercise by the end of this if you like to.
I will. I will.
Okay. So how did you navigate that uncertainty? I know that you felt at peace when you first got the news and mindfulness helped you, but like what did you start to do to get yourself back on your feet?
Okay. What I did was I relied on my past experiences.
Mhm.
So having a college degree, right? I've worked I had worked a temporary job before for an education company, and I knew that they were always hiring around that time of the year. So
Mhm.
it kind of lined up. So around March is when I was laid off, and I knew that education company, they start hiring their seasonal workers. I was like, oh, well, I'll just go back and do this
Mhm.
to score tests for the school system is, I'm not gonna say it's not easy money, but I was skilled for it, and I just let that ride for a few months. So I wasn't full-time employed. I wasn't unemployed, but I was able to do something to have some money coming in.
Yeah, it's so nice to have some additional talents or some additional education or a skill set that allows you to pivot while you are figuring everything else out. Like, girl, I will get up in that Canva for whoever needs it and I will make you something. Okay, what you need? You
Yes.
need a flyer? I got you right now. I've made it. It's in your inbox before you ask
I'm a
for it.
Canva girl too. I'm a Canva girl too, but you have something that I don't, and that's the ability to take on one-on-one clients. You have to be a special person to do that.
Well,
I do my own Canva.
most of them are my friends, so
Okay.
and they are not designers, so they just let me do whatever, but it really feels good to
Yes.
me, like, outside of the things that I do, of course, to generate money, and I really do have a passion for all of the jobs that pay me, but when I get in
Mhm.
Canva and I'm able to just be creative with stuff and there's not a lot of constraints on what I need to do, sometimes I'll just be sitting here and I'll be like, "Oh, let me make my friend a LinkedIn banner," or, "Let me create this," because sometimes my
Wow.
brain needs a break from the hard stuff. And for
Yes.
me, Canva is like colors and shapes and fun. And I didn't
Yes.
realize that like I needed that creative outlet for so long. So I don't know. I enjoy it. I like to sit in my bed at night and like
You might need to reach out to Canva and be one of their brand ambassadors. Did you get the glow up? Did you get the
no.
Canva? You didn't get the Canva glow up when they were saying it's like a million people.
Mm-mm, I didn't.
Ooh.
So
Oh,
I mean I wasn't going hard at it back then. So maybe, the next time I will.
okay.
But yeah, I love Canva. It's definitely helped me, especially with my ADHD because it doesn't have to make sense and it can be all over the place, but in a way that's beautiful.
It is. Canva is beautiful. I've been a Canva user for years, so
Mhm.
I agree.
All right. So you gone through your layoff. How long did it take you to find a new role? I mean, I know you were doing your testing and your grading and your educator thing, but how long did
For
it take
five.
you to land a role that you wanted to be in?
Oh, so I would say hmm, 6 months to land it, but an additional 3 months to actually start because I ended up getting a job with the federal government, which I know a lot of people covet to everybody want to work with the
Look,
government.
black families, black mothers specifically, you better go down there and get you one of them good government jobs. Okay, that is something
Yes.
that is taught to us. You get those benefits, you get those days off.
Listen, and that's what I did. I to date, to everybody listening, if you want to work for the government and you haven't been successful, this is for you too, Dana. If you
Mhm,
wanna, it's not easy.
mhm.
And to date, can you guess how many applications I have with the government? Just guess.
And girl, that USA jobs website, that portal, you apply to everything. Probably like I would say 100 because some of my guests have applied to like hundreds of jobs.
All right, let me look right now. It is I'm pulling it up right now and
Live data.
390.
Wow.
390
And you only got the one?
applications. And I what you say?
And you only got the one?
No, actually, I've received multiple offers.
Oh, girl,
I
come on.
started I started applying in March of 2023. That's
Mhm,
when because I had to start over.
mhm,
Because let's go back. You know when we first graduate,
mhm,
you get on USA jobs.
mhm.
Before the last few years, they weren't really hiring like they are now.
Okay.
Especially when you were just out of school, they weren't really touching us for real, for real.
Mhm,
So last March, right during the layoff, I mean the next day, I started applying USA jobs. I have 309 applications, 390, almost 400 applications to date.
wow.
That's how serious I was. I would be up 12 a.m. because I'm gonna give y'all a little secret. Most jobs post after 12 a.m.
Mhm,
So you want to be fresh. You want to be the one of the first people to apply to these jobs
mhm.
because by the time like some postings actually tell you how many people apply once it closes. I've applied to a job posting where there were over 10,000 applicants.
Mm, that's
So
rough. That's
it's
rough.
not easy, But if you're in a space where you know you need to get a job, you have to be diligent and you have to wake up. I was waking up 12 a.m. Soon as the fresh jobs drop, I'm submitting my application.
Wow. Okay, y'all heard it here. If you want one of them good government jobs, that our mamas told us that we needed to go out and get, specifically those of us who are black and have black mamas. Black mamas love a government job. You need to be applying after 12 a.m. and you may need to submit 400 applications. But
Yeah, but you may not need to submit that many, especially if you have specialized skills. You may not have to do as much. If you have a master's degree, if you have specialized skills, they have paths called direct hire, where you don't have to go through like the competitive process per se, because all job announcements on there are different.
yeah, they are.
They're all different. So don't get discouraged if you apply to one and you don't hear back. Every agency is different, every department is different, every HR department is different. Just the hiring paths are different. If you have disabilities, there are targets for people with disabilities, veterans, students, recent graduates. If you just graduate within 2 years, there's a special path for you as well. So there is a job out there for anyone who wants to work hard and stick with the process.
Well, you heard it here. She just gave y'all some great advice. So if you are still looking for your next career, consider the government. Now, could you share more about your role in what agency you work for?
Well, I will say I'm an emergency management specialist. Because
Okay.
I'm not speaking, I'm not speaking on anybody's behalf, on any agency. I'm not representing any agency, but I am an emergency management specialist, and I do HR. Now, it's a little different than my past HR because I work with the local hires. And what I do is I respond to disasters. And, if you could put two and two together, you'll figure out who I work for. But I respond to disasters, and that looks like helping people who want to help their local area get back to where they need to be during and after a disaster. So I got there. That was one of the first offers that I received from the government.
Wow. When you say disasters, mean?
I mean, like hurricanes,
Oh,
wildfires,
okay.
tornadoes, things of that nature.
And what
Even
type of
floods.
HR? Like HR
Even floods.
for disasters? That is not something that really connects in my brain. So help me connect it.
Sure. So when a disaster happens, you need people to help people, right?
Right.
You people are without things. That could be their homes, that could be food, that could be their jobs. Um, so you need people who are willing to help get their, you know, constituents and their fellow citizens back to a place where they can be comfortable.
Okay.
So we hire people who are willing to get their areas back in shape. So before the disaster hits, during the disaster, and after, we are needed. And so that looks like, hey, if something happens where we are in Norfolk, we're going to need people to respond to people who need assistance.
Okay. So
So,
you are like the contractors, the people who have to rebuild this, do that, provide this service for those folks. You are a part of the process in getting them, up to standard
yes.
HR compliance and hired and onboarded and all of that stuff, right?
Let's go back just a little bit, because the people that particularly in my department, these are people who are going to help, like, with individual assistance. So
Okay.
taking phone calls. So they get hired on to be a local hire, and they do things like applications for, assistance, food assistance, things like that. So, not contractors per se, they do get hired on in a specific status with the agency.
Okay.
They're not full time, but they are eligible for benefits after a certain time. But again, it's a good thing to do because it helps you. If you become a reservist, it helps you to help your area, to help your people.
Yeah, that's something that I wouldn't even think of,
Hmm.
or there being a surge of a need for, people to work during those disasters. You get kind of wrapped up in the heartbreak of it and the fact that,
Hmm.
people were so impacted, but you don't think that like, okay, now they are impacted next. Now what? We need boots on the ground. We need people to be able to help and assist and get everything back up to where it needs to be, including that, food assistance applications, what have you. So, not to say that look for natural disasters to happen, but when they do, just consider the fact that you could be in service to an agency in that way.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so your role relies on something not great to happen.
Yes.
How often I mean, of course, I watch the news and like things happen all over the place, but like, how often are these things happening to where you're able to fully use your skill set?
So me personally, I so there's a lot that goes into me actually going on site and me being at a disaster.
Hmm.
Um, and because my views are my own and I don't represent the agency in this conversation, I just want to say that it depends.
Hmm.
It really just depends. And I can't go into too much of how it actually works, but I could end up anywhere.
Okay.
Um, and as far as disasters, although we don't want them to happen, they
Hmm.
happen.
Yeah.
Nobody can control that part.
Hmm.
So the best thing that we can do is be prepared, right?
Hmm.
Whether you work for the agency or not, just you being a citizen,
Hmm.
I'm relying on you, Dana, to
Hmm.
have your household prepared, right?
Okay. Yeah.
For you to have, your flashlights and batteries and
Hmm.
and uh, food and backup and generators. We have to think as a people and not just as employees, but even just as people, as citizens of where we live. If something like that were to happen, are you prepared?
Child, no.
So,
Let me get to the
see,
Walmart. I
yeah.
mean,
So,
I do have flashlights. I don't have batteries.
see,
Me and my kids are gonna have to. I don't really do canned goods. I'm more of like a pressure frozen. We got peanut butter and we got jelly. We good.
listen, that peanut butter and jelly is gonna hit every time, okay? But so just think, you don't have to go all out. You don't have to be a survivalist.
Okay. No.
But you just need to have enough for your family. We like to say at least for 5 days worth, right? 5 days worth of food, 5 days worth of water. Um, or if you find yourself being able to leave and evacuate ahead of time, hey,
Hmm.
that's it's really up to you. But everybody doesn't have that privilege,
Yeah.
right?
I've
So it's
definitely been
important.
through multiple disasters. I lost my car in Hurricane Andrew a few years back. And then when I was in high school, I remember Hurricane Elizabeth, and that one
Yes.
is the one that like I've carried with me forever. And
Mm-hmm.
I did have a survival, not a survival kit, but I always like kept a quantity of peanut butter and waters. And my ex-husband would be like, You do not need all of this." And I'd be like, "Well, when I was in high school, Hurricane Elizabeth happened and the power was out for weeks and we had to try to get gas and ice and everybody just was having block parties to cook their meat because nobody could store anything." So just remembering that time, I definitely do keep a couple jars of peanut butter just in case, but it
Mm-hmm.
it is something that we should definitely be more mindful of. So thank you for bringing that to the forefront. Here at Hilariously Unemployed, we cover you every which way, okay? We got you covered here. Now, so moving out of your current role, let's switch gears and talk about what it is to be a mindfulness instructor, how you serve yourself and others, And then I want you to lead us in a little mindfulness exercise because if you join late, you miss me, boo hoo hoo, and at the top of the call. I'm still deciding if I'm going to put that on the podcast episode when I put it on platforms. But Kimberly was the perfect guest for today, and she gave me what it is that I needed. So, talk to us about being a mindfulness educator. What does one do in that regard?
All right. So there are a few approaches to mindfulness. First, if for anyone who's listening who may not have even heard of mindfulness, a basic definition is just being present in the moment, right? Not worrying about what's going on, what's going to happen in the future. You're not thinking about the past. You're really just here. Like, think about where you are right now listening to this podcast. Get down to the very core of where you are. You may be sitting in your car. You may be in your office. You may be at home. You may be in the grocery store. Mindfulness is just, where am I right now? Mm-hmm. How do I feel? Mm-hmm. Right? We can't spend a lot of time worrying about the future because that's going to bring on stress, anxiety, depression. Mm-hmm. So that's a basic definition of it. You can apply mindfulness in many ways. When I actually first started, I thought I was going to be a mindfulness educator in the school system.
Really?
Yes. I was actually, my teacher training was to teach in schools, to be a wraparound service. But I was like, you know what? They have a lot of school systems don't embrace it.
Yeah.
And that's okay. So I was like, you know what? I'll go to the community. Mm-hmm. And I decided to teach in my own way through my coloring book. So I published a coloring book, Gifted Brown Girls, Mindfulness Coloring Book, 5-star rated on Amazon.
Hey,
get a copy. I'm an Amazon bestseller because of that in another book. Mm-hmm. But what drew me to it is like, you know what? I can't impact the classroom like I want to because of politics. Mm-hmm. But I can come to my community with it, and I can teach. The first person I taught was my niece. Mm-hmm. She was 7 years old at the time. She's going to be 12 this year. She still relies on her mindfulness practice.
I bet you she's so balanced. Oh, my goodness.
Well, she has some of that preteen going on.
Well, yes.
So it's a little unbalanced now.
But she has the tools.
So, and when she was younger, she was just so into it. Like, I bought wind chimes and sound bowls.
Wow.
We would just meditate. She would just lay in her room, and there's a little cartoon called Moxie or something that's on YouTube, and she'll listen to that to go to sleep. Wow. That's what mindfulness is. It's not about just meditating and sitting in quiet. Mindfulness is reading a book. Mm-hmm. Mindfulness is taking a walk, but you have to be intentional about it. Mm-hmm. You're not just walking just to walk. You're walking and you're breathing. You're feeling your heartbeat. You're clearing your mind. Mindfulness is listening to music. Mindfulness is writing your own song. Mindfulness is whatever you need it to be. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, lead us in a mindfulness exercise. This is perfect for people who are hilariously unemployed. Sometimes we're always thinking about the future and what is going to be next, right? So just being able to pause, take a break from that space and be mindful, I think will be a great resource for them. Kimberly Bell, you've got the stage.
All right. So for this mindfulness exercise, you don't have to close your eyes, but you can have a downward gaze. If you don't feel comfortable closing your eyes, you can just take deep breaths. And what I like to do is to start is an inhale of 4 and exhale of 8. So when you breathe in, you'll count to 4. When you breathe out, you'll count to 8. And you do that as many times as you need to. In addition to that, you just kind of block out any sounds that you hear. You're going to hear everything around you, but the key is to just breathe. So action, breathing, and centering. And you should be able to just take a moment to pause. So we'll inhale 4 and exhale 8.
Well, I hope y'all got y'all breathe on. You definitely will hear my heavy breathing on podcast platforms. I was doing that the whole time you were talking. Very soothing. Thank you so much for that, Kimberly. That was perfect. Sometimes, like, I don't realize the tension that I hold in my shoulders when I'm doing certain things. So when I do take those deep breaths, I'm like, girl, relax yourself. Let your jaw chill out. Uncross your legs. Like,
Yes.
be free, be still, be mindful of the tension and the stressors that you're holding in your body every day by just taking a breath to do that exercise. 4 in, 8 out. Thank you so much for that,
Yes.
Kimberly.
You're very welcome.
All right, like I do for each and every one of my guests that is here, whatever you are seeking, if that is opportunity and career and mindfulness, wherever they can find you, talk more about your book, your apps, your social media handles. What would you like to share with the audience about how they can connect with you and support you?
Yes, you can connect with me on the really, really great app of TikTok. I am
She is
there.
a big deal on TikTok, y'all.
Mindfully Kim, Mindfully Kim, on TikTok,
Mhm.
and my coloring book again is Gifted Brown Girls Mindfulness Coloring Book on Amazon.
Mhm.
It will ship to you in no less than 5 days.
I
I mean,
promise you,
no.
she already has it in her cart. She is so like she has
Okay.
Amazon on like click, 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 boom.
Listen, it's there, and if you click on my name, you'll see other books that I've published, and even for the kids. I woke up this morning, Dana, and I had no idea because Amazon doesn't tell me who buys what. But my college roommate, she tagged me this morning at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Oh.
She had bought a gratitude journal that I made for kids ages 5 to 9, and it's a daily gratitude practice. So if you have little ones, look up the I Can Be Grateful journal by Kimberly Bell. In addition to the Gifted Brown Girls. So that's where you can connect with me. And I just want to thank you, Dana.
Yeah, I want to thank you, Miss Kimberly Bell. Make sure y'all go ahead and click her name, follow her here on LinkedIn and everywhere else that she just shared with you. Kimberly, it has been such a great pleasure, and I appreciate you being my guest for today. Because I was a mess at the start of this episode, and you brought me right on back down to the ground, and now I'm chilling and like, where can I get my lemon dropped in my margarita? Okay,
Yes.
that's inappropriate. Anyway.
Because I'm happy for you. Whatever your outlet is, Dana, I'm happy for you that you can laugh and find joy in the moment.
Thank you so much. All right, hilarious. I appreciate y'all tapping in for another episode of the Hilariously Unemployed. I will be back next week with another guest. Make sure you like, subscribe, give your girl 5 stars. Lord knows I need them. This episode will be out on podcast platforms by tomorrow. Love you. Bye.